Do you know anyone who needs a daughter? That was the question a barefoot 7-year-old asked Vincent Caruso on the coldest night of the Chicago winter. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for food. She only wanted a place where no one would punish her for being alive. Outside the Black Orchid, black cars waited beneath the falling snow while politicians and millionaires drank behind golden windows. And there she stood, clutching a torn, stuffed fox, her feet bleeding against the frozen pavement. Vincent was a man who could silence an entire room with one look, but her question left him with no answer. This is not only a story about a mafia boss saving a child. It is about broken trust, unexpected love, and the promises that can rebuild a life. Stay until the end. Like the video and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The silence after Sophie's question felt heavier than the snow gathering along the curb. Vincent Caruso had heard men beg for their lives without moving him. He had watched politicians lie across candlelit tables and criminals swear loyalty with blood still drying on their cuffs. He knew fear when it wore arrogance. He knew fear when it wore anger. This was different. This was a child asking whether honesty would send her back into danger. Vincent lowered himself until his eyes were level with hers. Snow clung to the shoulders of his black suit. The city moved behind him in blurred headlights and river fog, but his attention never left her face. "No," he said. Sophie's fingers tightened around the torn, stuffed fox. "No what? No one is sending you anywhere tonight." She searched his expression with the careful suspicion of someone who had learned that adults often hid cruelty behind gentle voices. "What about tomorrow?" Vincent paused. He could have given her an easy promise. He could have said never. He could have told her that every frightening thing in her life had ended the moment she stepped beneath his awning. But children like Sophie had heard promises before. "We will decide what keeps you safe," he said. "You will know before anything happens." Her eyes lowered to the marble floor beyond the glass doors. Warmth poured from the restaurant every time someone entered. It carried the smell of roasted garlic butter, cedar smoke, and expensive wine. Inside, men in tailored jackets leaned over white linen tables, while women in silk dresses spoke behind raised glasses. Sophie looked at the floor as if it were more dangerous than the street. "I'll make it dirty." Vincent glanced at her bare feet. The skin was red and cracked. A thin line of blood curved beneath one heel. "The floor can be cleaned. What if somebody gets mad?" His jaw tightened. "No one in that building gets angry with you for walking." The answer seemed to confuse her. Vincent stood slowly and held the door open. Cole Ramsey remained several steps behind him, broad-shouldered and silent, his scarred hands folded in front of his coat. 2 security men waited near the sedans, but neither came closer. Sophie looked at each of them before moving. One step, then another. She crossed the threshold on the edges of her feet, trying to leave as little mud as possible. The Black Orchid quieted around her. The shift began near the entrance and spread through the dining room like a cold current. A waiter stopped with a bottle tilted above a glass. A city councilman turned in his chair. A woman wearing diamonds lowered her voice and stared over the rim of her champagne. Sophie felt every eye. Her shoulders pulled inward beneath Vincent's coat. She made herself smaller with each step. Vincent moved beside her, close enough to block the room's view, but far enough not to touch her. Margaret Sloane appeared near the host stand. Her dark hair was pinned neatly at the base of her neck. Her charcoal suit was flawless, her posture exact, and the expression on her face could usually silence an angry customer before he reached his second sentence. She looked at Vincent. Then she saw Sophie. Whatever she had been prepared to say disappeared. "Prepare the guest suite upstairs," Vincent said. Margaret's eyes moved over the child's wet hair, bare feet, and the stuffed fox pressed against her chest. How long? As long as necessary. Margaret gave one small nod and turned toward the private corridor. Sophie did not follow immediately. Is that where people go when they're in trouble? Vincent looked down at her. No. Then why is it upstairs? Because it is quiet. She considered that answer before moving again. The private corridor behind the dining room was narrow and warm. Stainless steel doors opened into the kitchen where pans struck burners and cooks called to one another over the hiss of steam. The noise stopped when Vincent passed. A young dishwasher stared openly at Sophie. Lou Marino, the executive chef, looked up from a cutting board near the central counter. He was a heavy man with silver hair at his temples and reading glasses hanging low on his nose. His eyes dropped to Sophie's feet. The knife in his hand stopped moving. Vincent said nothing, but Lou understood. He reached for a clean towel, wrapped several warm rolls inside it, and handed the bundle to Margaret as they passed. Sophie watched the bread disappear up the stairs. She said nothing. Vincent noticed anyway. They climbed to the 3rd floor. Sophie held the banister with one hand and the fox with the other. By the 2nd landing, her knees began to tremble. Vincent slowed his pace. He did not offer to carry her. Something in the way she watched his hands told him that being lifted without warning would frighten her more than the stairs. At the top, Margaret opened a door at the end of the hall. The suite beyond was quiet and softly lit. A cream-colored couch faced a glass fireplace. Thick curtains framed windows overlooking the Chicago River. A bedroom waited through an open doorway with clean sheets, folded blankets, and a lamp glowing on the nightstand. Sophie stopped outside. This isn't for me. It is tonight, Margaret said. Sophie looked at Vincent. He stepped into the room first. Only then did she follow. Margaret placed the warm rolls beside a bowl of broth and a glass pitcher of water. Sophie's eyes moved toward the food. She looked away so quickly that another person might have missed it. Vincent did not. You can eat, he said. I'm not hungry. Her stomach answered for her. Sophie pressed the fox harder against herself, embarrassed. Vincent crossed to an armchair near the window and sat. He left the couch and the table between them. You do not have to earn food here. The child stared at him. There were sentences that comforted people because they were familiar. This one seemed to hurt because it was not. Can I save some? There will be more later. How much? As much as you need. Sophie's brow tightened. She looked from Vincent to Margaret, waiting for one of them to laugh. Neither did. She approached the table and picked up a roll with both hands. For several seconds, she only held it. Then she took a small bite and chewed slowly. The second bite came faster. She stopped after eating half. While pretending to adjust Vincent's coat around her shoulders, she slipped the rest into the pocket. Vincent looked toward the windows and let her believe he had not seen. Margaret left to collect clothes and warm towels. Cole remained in the hall, already speaking quietly into his phone. Vincent heard fragments through the open door. Bus terminal cameras, missing children, hospitals, shelters. Sophie heard them too. Are you looking for someone? I'm finding out where you came from. Her body stiffened. Vincent leaned back in the chair, making no move toward her. You do not have to tell me yet. What if you find him first? Then he will not find you. The certainty in his voice filled the room. Sophie looked down at the fox. He finds things. So do I. A quiet knock interrupted them. Dr. Amelia Hayes entered carrying a leather medical case. Damp brown hair curled around her face where the snow had melted. She wore navy hospital scrubs beneath a dark green coat, and exhaustion lived beneath her eyes without weakening them. Her gaze found Vincent first. You said it was urgent. It is. You always say that when someone has been shot. This is worse. Amelia followed his eyes. She saw Sophie beside the table. The sharpness left her face. Amelia removed her coat and placed it over the back of a chair. Then she crouched several feet away from the child. "Hello. My name is Amelia." Sophie's hand disappeared into the pocket containing the bread. "I'm a doctor," Amelia continued. "I came to make sure the cold didn't hurt you." Sophie moved backward. Amelia did not follow. "What is your friend's name?" The child looked at the stuffed fox. "Copper. That is a good name. He used to have both ears." Amelia smiled softly. "He looks like he has survived a lot." Sophie looked at her for the first time. "So have you?" Amelia said. Vincent's gaze moved to Amelia. There was no pity in her voice, only recognition. Amelia opened her medical case. The metal clasp clicked. Sophie recoiled so quickly that the couch struck the back of her knees. She nearly fell. Vincent rose. Amelia lifted one hand without looking at him. "Stay there." His expression hardened. "She needs an examination. She needs to know she can say no." Vincent glanced at Sophie. The child's breathing had become shallow. Her eyes were fixed on the open case. Amelia closed it again. "We do not have to do anything yet," she said. Sophie looked at Vincent. "Will you stay?" "Yes." "Where I can see you." Vincent returned to the chair. "Right here." Amelia waited until Sophie's shoulders lowered. "May I look at your feet?" Sophie hesitated. "Do you have to touch them? Only if you let me. What happens if I say no?" "Then I wait." The answer seemed impossible to Sophie. She sat on the edge of the couch and slowly extended one foot. Amelia moved with deliberate care. She asked permission before removing dirt, before pressing the skin, before wrapping the foot in a warm towel. When feeling returned, Sophie gasped and pulled away. Vincent's hands closed over the arms of his chair. Amelia noticed. "Pain can increase when the blood begins moving again," she explained. "It does not mean she is getting worse." Vincent forced his hands to relax. The examination continued. Amelia asked before moving the coat from Sophie's shoulder. A purple mark curved around the child's upper arm. Another bruise darkened her ribs. There were old burns along the inside of one forearm. Thin scars crossed her back in pale lines. One fingernail had grown unevenly after being torn near the base. Amelia's face remained calm. Only her voice changed. It became quieter. "Does this spot hurt?" Sophie shrugged. "A little or a lot, I don't know. When did it happen? I don't know." Amelia touched lightly near the lower ribs. Sophie flinched hard and bit back a cry. Vincent stood. Sophie's eyes snapped toward him. He stopped immediately. Amelia looked over her shoulder. "Sit down." No one in Chicago spoke to Vincent Caruso that way. He sat. Amelia finished checking Sophie's breathing and pulse. She measured the child's temperature, examined her pupils, and placed ointment over the cracked skin of her feet. Sophie watched every movement. When Amelia reached for a bandage, she asked first. When Sophie said yes, Amelia thanked her. By the end, exhaustion had pulled the child sideways against the couch. Margaret returned with soft clothes, a toothbrush, socks, and a basin of warm water. She took one look at Amelia's face and did not ask questions. Amelia helped Sophie into the socks. "You need small amounts of food every few hours," she said. "Nothing too heavy tonight. Do I have to finish it?" "No." Sophie looked at Vincent. He nodded. "No one will be angry if you stop." Margaret showed her the bathroom. "I can help you wash your hair," she offered. "Or I can wait outside." "Outside." Margaret nodded as if the request were ordinary. Sophie carried Copper into the bathroom. The door closed but did not latch. Water began to run. Amelia motioned for Vincent to follow her into the hall. Cole stood near the staircase with his phone in one hand. Vincent closed the suite door until only a narrow gap remained. Amelia removed her glasses and pressed 2 fingers against the bridge of her nose. Say it, Vincent said. She is severely underweight. Her feet are showing early frost damage, but I think we caught it before anything permanent happened. Vincent waited. There are injuries in different stages of healing. At least one old rib fracture. Repeated burns. Scarring consistent with a belt or electrical cord. Cole looked toward the door. Amelia's voice lowered. This did not happen during one bad night. Vincent did not move. She expects pain before anyone touches her. She apologizes before asking for anything. She hides food because she does not believe there will be another meal. What does she need medical care? A trauma specialist. Sleep. Predictability. Choices. And the person who did this, Amelia, studied him. She does not need another violent man deciding what is best for her. Cole lowered his eyes. Vincent's expression became unreadable. You think I am the same as him? No. The answer came without hesitation. But Sophie does not know that yet. Vincent looked through the gap in the door. Steam drifted from the bathroom. Margaret sat outside with a folded towel on her lap, waiting without speaking. Cole cleared his throat. No match in the missing child database under Sophie Walker. Nothing local. She may not have been reported. Cameras. She came from the bus terminal. Alone. We are tracing the route. Find every angle. Cole nodded. And put 2 men on this floor. Amelia's eyes sharpened. You cannot surround her with armed guards. They will remain at the stairwell. She will still see them. They will face away from her door. Amelia studied him for a moment. Some part of her argument faded. The bathroom went silent. Something struck the tile inside. Vincent moved toward the suite. Amelia caught his forearm. Ask first. His eyes dropped to her hand. Amelia released him. Vincent opened the door but stayed outside the bathroom. Sophie. No answer. He kept his voice steady. Are you hurt? I dropped the soap. May Margaret come in? A pause. Only Margaret. Vincent stepped back. Margaret entered and closed the door behind her. Amelia stood beside him in the sitting room. You listened, she said. I hear more than people think. That is not the same thing. His gaze moved to her. No, it isn't. For a second, the air between them changed. Then the bathroom door opened. Sophie emerged wearing a white shirt that reached her knees and gray pants rolled several times above her ankles. Her wet hair hung unevenly around her face. Without the dirt, the hollows beneath her cheekbones looked deeper. She stopped when she saw Vincent. You stayed. It was not gratitude. It was surprise. I said I would. Sophie looked at the bed, then at the couch, then at the corner beside the fireplace. Can I sleep there? Vincent followed her gaze to the rug. If that is where you feel comfortable. Margaret arranged blankets in the corner without comment. Sophie lowered herself with her back against the wall and a clear view of the door. Vincent placed the broth within reach. She ate 4 small spoonfuls, then covered the bowl with a napkin. No one told her to finish. Her eyelids began to close. Amelia gathered her medical supplies. She needs someone nearby tonight. Vincent looked at Sophie. I will be outside. Amelia held his gaze, searching for pride or performance. She found neither. Sophie fell asleep wrapped in Vincent's coat copper beneath her chin, one hand resting over the pocket where she had hidden the bread. Hours later, the restaurant had gone dark. Vincent sat in a chair outside the suite while the building settled around him. Pipes shifted inside the walls. Wind pressed against the river windows. Somewhere below, Lou cursed quietly at a pan someone had left soaking. Near dawn, Amelia returned. She found Vincent still in the hallway, his head resting against the wall, his eyes closed. She placed a folded blanket over his shoulders. His hand caught her wrist before the fabric settled. Amelia froze. Vincent opened his eyes and released her immediately. For 1 second, neither spoke. Then a scream tore through the suite. Vincent was on his feet before the second one came. He opened the door. Sophie was curled in the far corner, both hands over her head, copper crushed beneath her chest. "No," she cried. "Please. I'll be quiet." Vincent stopped several feet away. "Sophie." Her eyes remained trapped somewhere beyond the room. "Please don't put me in the basement." Sophie's voice broke on the last word. "Please don't put me in the basement." Vincent stopped where he was. The room glowed with the weak blue light of the lamp beside the bed. The blankets had been kicked aside. Copper lay half-trapped beneath Sophie's knees, one torn ear twisted against the rug. Her body was in the suite, but her eyes were somewhere else. Amelia entered behind Vincent and closed the door softly. "Sophie," Vincent said. The child covered her head with both arms. "I'll be quiet. I promise. I won't make noise." Vincent lowered himself to the floor. He did not move closer. "You are at the Black Orchid." Sophie rocked against the wall. "No." "No." He turned the light off. "The light is on." Her breathing came fast and shallow. Vincent looked around the room, searching for things she knew. "The blue lamp is beside the bed. Your red socks are on the chair. Copper is with you." Sophie's hands loosened slightly. "Lou burned the bread yesterday because he was arguing with the oven." Amelia watched from near the doorway. Vincent continued. "Margaret left your books on the table. Cole is downstairs pretending he does not like the soup." Sophie's rocking slowed. "There is no basement here," he said. "There is a bathroom behind you. The door is open. You can see the light." Her eyes moved toward the bathroom. The warm glow touched the pale tile. Vincent stayed still. "No one locked you in?" Sophie looked at him at last, her face folded with shame. "I screamed." "Yes. I tried not to. You do not have to be quiet when you are afraid." Her lower lip trembled. "He gets mad when I cry." "He is not here. What if he comes back?" Vincent's hands rested open on his knees. "Then he meets me first." Amelia glanced at him, but she did not interrupt. Sophie's breathing gradually slowed. Vincent moved only when she reached for him. Her fingers opened and closed in the air as though she did not know what she was asking for. He shifted closer by a single foot. "May I sit beside you?" Sophie nodded. Vincent sat against the wall, leaving space between them. For several minutes, neither spoke. Sophie stared at his sleeve. Then she caught the edge of it between two fingers. Vincent did not look down. Amelia crossed to the bed and turned on the second lamp. Warm light spread through the room and pushed the shadows back. Sophie whispered, "Why are you staying?" "Because nobody should be scared alone." She held his sleeve more tightly. Amelia sat on the floor across from them. The three of them remained there until Sophie's head began to fall against the wall. Vincent moved his arm slowly. She did not flinch when he placed a folded blanket behind her neck. That small victory hurt more than it should have. Sophie fell asleep with one hand wrapped around Vincent's cuff. Morning came gray and silent over the Chicago River. Vincent was still sitting beside her when she opened her eyes. She blinked at him. "You didn't go." "I said I wouldn't." Sophie looked at the hand still holding his sleeve. She released it quickly. "Sorry." Vincent's jaw tightened. "You do not have to apologize for holding on." She looked down. Amelia rose from the chair where she had slept for less than an hour. "I am going to check your breathing," she said. "Is that all right?" Sophie nodded. Vincent stood, but Sophie caught his wrist. He looked down. "Stay until she's done." "Yes." Amelia heard the answer and said nothing. The days that followed found their own rhythm. Sophie began appearing in the kitchen before sunrise. She never announced herself. Lou simply looked up one morning and found her sitting on a wooden stool near the pantry, wrapped in a soft gray sweater Margaret had brought from home. Copper rested in her lap. Lou set 2 pans on the stove. You eat eggs. Sophie lowered her eyes. I'm not hungry. Lou glanced at her narrow wrists and said, Good. Neither am I. He made 2 plates anyway. He placed one on the counter near her and sat on an overturned crate. Then he took a bite from her plate. Sophie stared. Why did you do that, quality control? What does that mean? It means I am a professional and I do not trust myself. A small crease appeared between her brows. Lou took another bite. Not poisoned. Sophie moved closer. She ate standing up. When half a piece of toast remained, she wrapped it in a napkin and slipped it into her sleeve. Lou noticed. He turned toward the stove and began complaining loudly about tomatoes. By the end of the week, Sophie no longer waited beside the trash bins. She sat near the flour table instead. Lou gave her simple tasks. She washed parsley. She counted lemons. She stirred sauce with both hands wrapped around the wooden spoon. Whenever she made a mistake, she froze. Lou always found a way to make the mistake look intentional. The first time she spilled flour across the floor, her face lost all color. I'm sorry. Lou looked at the white cloud around her boots. Then he threw another handful into the air. Flour drifted over his hair and shoulders. There, he said. Now it is a design. Sophie stared at him. A sound escaped her, soft and uncertain. Lou turned. Was that a laugh? She covered her mouth. No. Good. I hate laughter before coffee. The second sound was clearer. Across the kitchen, Cole stopped walking. Margaret paused in the doorway. Vincent stood near the service entrance with a phone against his ear. Every person in the room heard it. Sophie noticed their silence and immediately looked down. Vincent ended the call. The room survived, he said. She glanced at him. He nodded toward Lou. Do it again if he deserves it. Lou placed a hand over his heart. I always deserve it. Sophie smiled. It lasted only a second, but Vincent carried the sight with him for the rest of the day. Margaret's care came in quieter forms. She brought Sophie clothes in soft colors and removed every price tag before placing them inside the suite. She bought a child's hairbrush, 3 kinds of shampoo, and a box of crayons so large that Sophie stared at it as if it were jewelry. Margaret also brought red winter boots. She placed them near the bed. Sophie touched the smooth leather with one finger. Who are they for? You. When do I give them back? Margaret looked toward the window. You do not. Sophie's hand stopped. They're mine. Yes. For how long? Margaret swallowed. Until your feet grow out of them. Sophie sat on the rug and pulled the boots against her chest. Margaret turned away and adjusted a curtain that did not need adjusting. Cole earned Sophie's trust by doing almost nothing. He knocked before entering. He spoke before passing behind her. He never reached across her body. When he carried a tray upstairs, he placed it on the table and moved away before Sophie approached. One afternoon, a yellow crayon rolled beneath Vincent's desk. Sophie climbed down from the leather chair and peered into the shadows. Cole entered with a file. He saw the crayon and bent to retrieve it. Sophie recoiled. Cole froze with the yellow stick between his scarred fingers. The room went still. He lowered his hand and placed the crayon on the carpet. Yellow, he said. Sophie watched him step back. After several seconds, she picked it up. A week later, she left a drawing on his desk. It showed a large gray dog standing beside a small orange fox. Cole carried the paper into Vincent's office. What is this? Sophie pointed at the dog. That's you. Cole studied the drawing. Why am I gray? You always look like it's raining. Vincent covered his mouth with one hand. Cole looked at him. Do you have something to say? No. Sophie pointed at the fox. That's me. Cole looked at the 2 animals again. Why are they standing together? The dog scares bad people. Cole folded the drawing carefully. He kept it inside his jacket for the rest of the day. Amelia continued visiting long after Sophie's feet began to heal. She claimed she needed to monitor Sophie's weight and ribs. Vincent never questioned why the examinations became shorter while the visits became longer. One evening, Amelia found him in the kitchen making coffee. "You know that machine costs more than most people's cars," she said. "It still makes bad coffee. You are using it wrong. I own it. That does not make you competent." Vincent looked at her. Few people insulted him with such ease. Amelia stepped beside him and adjusted the settings. Their shoulders nearly touched. "You could send another doctor," Vincent said. "I could, but you don't. Sophie trusts me." Is that the only reason Amelia looked at him? The kitchen was quiet around them. The dining room had emptied. Rain moved against the windows in silver lines. "No," she said. Before Vincent could answer, Sophie appeared in the doorway holding a book. "I can't read this word." Amelia stepped away first. Sophie climbed onto a stool between them and opened the book. The word was family. Amelia sounded it out slowly. Sophie repeated it. Vincent watched her mouth form the letters. "Do you have one?" Sophie asked Amelia. "A family." Sophie nodded. "My parents live in Wisconsin. My brother lives in California." "Do you see them?" "Sometimes." Sophie looked at Vincent. "What about you?" Vincent's expression changed. "I had a younger brother. Where is he?" The silence answered before Vincent did. "He died." Sophie looked down at the page. "I'm sorry." Vincent leaned against the counter. His name was Daniel. How old was he? 8. Sophie's fingers moved over the picture in the book. "Did he have a stuffed animal?" Vincent closed his eyes for a moment. "A bear. What was its name?" "General?" "That's a serious name. He was a serious bear." Sophie smiled faintly. Amelia watched Vincent with a softness he found difficult to meet. Later, after Sophie had gone upstairs with Margaret, Amelia found Vincent standing alone beside the windows. "You never talk about him," she said. "There is nothing useful to say. That is not why people talk about the dead." Vincent looked out at the river. "He was taken from a park when I was 17. I was supposed to watch him." Amelia remained silent. I turned away to speak to someone. Less than a minute. His reflection in the glass looked older than the man beside her. They found the van 2 days later. Amelia's voice was quiet. "And Daniel 3 weeks after that." Vincent's hand tightened around the untouched glass in front of him. "I built everything after that. The restaurant, everything. The men outside every door. Yes. The cameras. Yes. The control." Vincent looked at her. "No one takes from me now." Amelia stepped closer. "Sophie is not something you own." His expression hardened. "I know." "Do you—" He set the glass down. "I know she is a child who was left alone in the snow because every adult in her life failed her, and you think you can make certain no one fails her again." "I can try." Amelia's gaze softened. "That is different." "From what?" "From believing you can control everything." Vincent looked toward the private stairs. "What if trying is not enough? It has to be." He studied her face. Amelia did not look away. For one suspended moment, neither moved. Then a small voice came from the doorway. Vincent's Sophie stood there in her nightclothes, copper beneath one arm. Her face was pale. Vincent crossed the room at once, but stopped before reaching her. "What happened? I want to tell you something." He glanced at Amelia. Sophie did too. "Can she stay?" "Yes," Amelia said. They went to Vincent's office. Sophie climbed into the chair opposite his desk. Amelia sat near the bookshelf. Vincent remained behind the desk until Sophie looked at the empty space beside her. He moved to the chair across from her instead. Sophie twisted Copper's torn ear around one finger. "My mom's name was Rachel." Vincent said nothing. She died when I was born. Amelia's breath caught softly. My dad said it wasn't my fault. He said she picked copper before I came. Sophie touched the fox's stitched nose. My dad worked on bridges. He fell. Her voice became flat. After that, I lived with Aunt Diane. Was she kind to you? Amelia asked. At first. Sophie looked at the floor. Then she married Richard. Vincent's hands settled on his knees. He smiled all the time when people were there, Sophie said. He brought flowers. He told everyone I was sweet. Her fingers tightened around copper. Then he moved in. The clock on Vincent's shelf clicked once. He got mad when I spilled things. He got mad if I asked questions. He got mad if I ate too fast. Sophie swallowed. He got mad if I ate too slow. Amelia's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. What did he do when he got angry? Sophie touched her forearm where the old burns hid beneath the sleeve. He taught me. Vincent became perfectly still. With what A belt? The room seemed to lose air. And cigarettes, Sophie whispered. Amelia closed her eyes for 1 second. Vincent did not. He kept looking at Sophie because she had spent too much of her life speaking to adults who looked away. There was a basement, she continued. He put me there when I needed to learn. For how long? Vincent asked. I don't know. It was always dark. Her shoulders drew inward. At first I screamed. Then he said every sound added another hour. Vincent's voice was nearly soundless. So you learned to be quiet. Sophie nodded. Aunt Diane knew. Amelia leaned forward. She put cream on the burn sometimes. Did she call anyone? Sophie shook her head. She said Richard was under stress. She said I had to try harder. Vincent looked down at his hands. Sophie rushed to continue mistaking the silence. I did try. I learned which floorboards made noise. I washed my plate before he came home. I ate less, so food lasted longer. Her eyes lifted. But it never worked. Vincent moved from the chair and lowered himself in front of her. He did not touch her. What made you leave? Sophie's fingers trembled. Richard lost money. She looked at Amelia, then back at Vincent. I heard him tell Aunt Diane that I cost too much. Vincent's expression did not change. He said he knew men who would pay for a girl my age. Amelia covered her mouth. Sophie's voice dropped. He said I was worth more because I was little. Vincent lowered his eyes for 1 dangerous second. Then he looked at her again. I waited until he fell asleep. I climbed through the basement window. Without shoes, Amelia said. He took them. Sophie pressed copper against her chest. I walked until I saw your restaurant. Her face began to crumple. The windows were warm. Everyone inside looked like they belonged somewhere. Tears filled her eyes. I thought maybe you knew where children like me were supposed to go. Vincent opened his arms. He did not reach for her. Sophie stared at the space between them. Then she moved. She slid from the chair and fell against him with a small, broken sound. Vincent held her carefully, one hand between her shoulders, the other at the back of her head. She weighed almost nothing. You are not going back, he said. Sophie shook against him. He'll find me. He will try. Her fingers tightened in his shirt. Will you give me back if he has papers? No. What if the police come? No. What if they make you? Vincent eased back enough to see her face. No one makes me abandon a child. Sophie searched his eyes. Can I stay here? Yes. For how long? As long as you need. She looked past him at Amelia. Do you believe him? Amelia met Vincent's gaze. He expected hesitation. She gave none. Yes, she said. I believe him. Sophie pressed her face against Vincent's shoulder again. Outside the office windows, Chicago moved beneath the rain, unaware that a promise had just been made in a room above the river. Cole entered 20 minutes later. He stopped when he saw Sophie asleep in Vincent's arms. Vincent lifted his eyes. Cole held a photograph in one hand. The man in the image stood across the street from the Black Orchid, smiling directly into a security camera. Vincent looked at Sophie, then at the photograph. "His name is Richard Vale," Cole said. Vincent passed the sleeping child carefully to Amelia and rose. For the first time since Sophie arrived, she did not wake when someone else held her. Vincent took the photograph. His voice was calm. "Find out everything." Cole gave one nod and left the office. Vincent remained beside the desk, the photograph still in his hand. Richard Vale stood beneath a street lamp across from the Black Orchid, wearing a dark coat and a calm smile. Snow had gathered along the shoulders of the coat, but he did not appear cold. He faced the security camera as though he knew exactly where it was, as though the photograph itself were a message. "I found her." Amelia sat on the couch with Sophie asleep against her chest. The child's cheek rested near Amelia's collarbone, one hand buried in the soft fabric of her sweater. Copper was trapped between them. Vincent looked at Sophie. Even in sleep, her body had not fully relaxed. One knee remained drawn toward her stomach. Her fingers twitched every few seconds. Her breathing was shallow, as if some part of her expected to wake in the dark. Amelia followed Vincent's gaze. "Do not let her see that picture. She will see him soon enough if he is already outside. That does not mean she should see him tonight." Vincent placed the photograph face down on the desk. "What do you want me to do?" Amelia studied him. It was not a challenge. Not this time. He was asking. "Let her sleep," she said. "Keep the room quiet. Do not change her routine unless there is immediate danger. There is immediate danger. There is a man across the street. That is not the same as someone inside this building." Vincent looked toward the windows. "He is watching. Yes. He knows where she is. Yes. And you expect me to act as though nothing has changed. I expect you to remember that Sophie notices everything. If every door suddenly has another guard, if the curtains close, if people start whispering when she enters a room, she will know." Vincent's mouth tightened. "She will think she caused it," Amelia continued. "Children like Sophie always think the danger follows them because something is wrong with them." His eyes returned to the sleeping child. "Nothing is wrong with her. Then make sure your fear does not teach her otherwise." The words struck cleanly. Vincent did not answer. Amelia adjusted Sophie's weight carefully and stood. The movement woke her. Sophie's eyes opened in confusion. She looked first at Amelia, then at Vincent, then toward the office door. "Did I fall asleep?" "Yes," Amelia said. "I'm sorry." Vincent crouched in front of her. "For what?" She looked down. "I don't know." "Then do not apologize." Sophie rubbed one eye. Did Cole find something? Vincent and Amelia exchanged a glance. Sophie saw it. Her shoulders tightened. "You said I would know before anything happened." Vincent held her gaze. He found Richard in Chicago. The color left her face. "Where outside?" Her breathing stopped for a moment. Amelia sat beside her. "He is not in the building." Sophie's hand closed around Copper's remaining ear. "He knows?" "Yes," Vincent said. "He always knows." Vincent kept his voice level. "He knows where the restaurant is. That is all." Sophie looked toward the dark windows. "Will he come inside? No." "How do you know?" "Because I own the doors." The answer was simple enough for her to understand. She looked at him for several seconds. "Can I sleep in your office?" Vincent glanced toward the couch. "Yes." Amelia touched Sophie's hair. "I can stay too." Sophie looked between them. Both, Vincent said. That night, Vincent worked at his desk while Sophie slept beneath a blanket on the couch. Amelia sat in the chair beside her reading medical reports beneath the low light of a brass lamp. Outside the office, Cole doubled the security at every entrance. He did it quietly. The guards changed positions one at a time. Staff received instructions privately. No one closed the curtains. No one carried weapons where Sophie could see them. Near midnight, Vincent looked up from his papers. Amelia had fallen asleep with her head resting against the chair. One hand remained near Sophie's shoulder without touching it. Vincent watched them both. For years, his office had been the safest room in Chicago because every man who entered it understood what Vincent was capable of doing. Now it was safe because a child had chosen to sleep there. The difference unsettled him. Morning brought no sign of Richard. Neither did the next day. Sophie returned to the kitchen. Lou complained about onions. Margaret placed a new book beside Sophie's breakfast. Cole walked the halls with his usual expression. Everything looked unchanged. Only Vincent noticed the black sedan that passed the restaurant 3 times before noon. Only Cole saw the man with the camera near the river. Only Amelia noticed that Vincent checked every window before entering a room. On the 3rd afternoon, Richard walked through the front doors. The Black Orchid was full. Winter light faded against the windows while candles glowed along the tables. A pianist played near the bar. Waiters moved between guests with plates balanced high above their shoulders. Sophie stood in the kitchen beside Lou, pressing circles into pizza dough with a drinking glass. She was wearing a blue apron folded twice at the waist. Lou held up one of the circles. "This one looks like Illinois." Sophie examined it. "It looks like a potato. That is because Illinois is shaped badly." She smiled. Then she looked through the small window in the kitchen door. The glass slipped from her hand. It struck the floor and shattered. Lou turned. Sophie stood perfectly still. Her face had gone white. Her eyes were fixed on the host stand. A man in a charcoal suit was speaking to the young hostess. Richard Vale looked different from the photograph. He looked warmer, friendlier. The kind of man who remembered names and tipped waiters generously when people were watching. His hair was neatly combed. His smile was patient. One hand rested beside a leather folder on the host stand. Lou saw the terror in Sophie's face before he saw the man. "Sophie." She did not answer. Lou stepped between her and the window. "Look at me." Her lips moved. "He found me." Lou reached toward her, then remembered. He stopped. "Can I pick you up?" Sophie made no sound. Her knees gave way. Lou caught her before she hit the tile. She did not resist when he carried her into the dry storage room. She folded against his chest, rigid and silent, copper crushed beneath her chin. Lou set her on an overturned crate. "Stay here." Her hand caught his sleeve. "Do not leave." "I am not leaving." He called Cole with his free hand. At the host stand, Richard opened the leather folder. "I am looking for my niece," he told the hostess. Sophie Walker, 7 years old, brown hair, gray eyes. The hostess looked at the photograph attached to the documents. Richard gave her a tired smile. She ran away after an argument. "She has done this before." Margaret appeared beside the hostess. "And you are Richard Vale." His expression softened further. "Her guardian." Margaret looked at the papers but did not touch them. Richard sighed. "She is a troubled child. She invents stories when she is upset." "We have been terrified." Margaret met his eyes. "Wait here. I would appreciate speaking with whoever is responsible." "You are." His smile faltered. Margaret turned and crossed the dining room. She did not hurry until she reached the service corridor. Vincent was already coming toward her. He had seen the plate break on the kitchen monitor. "It is him," Margaret said. "Where is Sophie Lou has her?" Vincent continued walking. "Cole." On his way. The dining room quieted before Vincent reached the host stand. Richard turned. For a moment, the two men studied each other. Richard smiled first. Vincent Caruso. Vincent stopped several feet away. Richard Vale. Richard extended his hand. Vincent looked at it. Richard lowered it. I apologize for arriving unannounced. I am here for Sophie. There is no one here for you. Richard's smile remained. I have legal custody. He opened the folder and slid a document across the stand. Vincent did not look down. Richard's voice softened. She is frightened, confused. She has been through a great deal. Yes, Vincent said. She has. Something in his tone made Richard pause. She may have told you stories. She told me enough. Richard glanced around the dining room. Guests were pretending not to listen. Staff made no such effort. Richard lowered his voice. She belongs with her family. Vincent's expression changed at the word. Belongs? You understand what I mean? No. Richard's patience thinned. I am her lawful guardian. You were responsible for her. That is the same thing. No. Richard's jaw tightened. She is a child. She does not know what is best for her. Vincent stepped closer. She knew enough to run barefoot through a Chicago winter. A few guests turned fully in their chairs. Richard noticed. His smile returned, but it no longer reached his eyes. Sophie is imaginative. She hurts herself when she is upset. She blames others. Vincent stared at him. You should leave. Richard blinked. I beg your pardon. You have 10 seconds to walk out. You cannot interfere in a family matter. Vincent's voice became quieter. 9. Richard looked toward the entrance. Cole stood beside the doors. 2 security men waited near the bar. Richard's fingers closed around the folder. I can return with police. 8. I can bring child services. 7. This will not end well for you. 6. Richard leaned closer. She is mine. Vincent moved before anyone else could react. Cole reached them first. He placed one hand against Richard's chest and pushed him back. Walk, Cole said. Richard looked at Vincent over Cole's shoulder. The charm had disappeared. You cannot keep her forever. Vincent's eyes remained cold. Leave before you discover how long forever can be. Cole guided Richard toward the doors. Richard resisted only enough to preserve his pride. At the threshold he turned. His gaze moved past Vincent toward the kitchen. She always comes home. Then he stepped outside. The doors closed behind him. Vincent stood motionless for 1 second. Then he went to Sophie. She was sitting on the crate in the storage room with Lou beside her. Her arms were wrapped around her knees. He found me, she whispered. Vincent lowered himself to the floor. Sophie, he found me. He is gone. She shook her head. He comes back. He left the building. He'll bring people. Vincent placed one open hand on the floor between them. He'll bring papers, she said. Then the police will make me go. No. Her eyes lifted. You cannot know. I know what I will do. That is not the same. The words sounded like Amelia. Vincent almost smiled, but Sophie's fear stopped him. You are right, he said. She stared at him. I cannot promise what every judge or police officer will do. I can promise that no one takes you from this building without a fight, and I can promise you will know what is happening before anyone makes a decision. Sophie looked at his hand. Slowly, she placed hers inside it. I don't want to go back. You will not. Her fingers tightened. Vincent drew her forward only after she moved toward him. She pressed her face against his chest and began to cry. Not quietly. The sobs came hard, shaking through her entire body. Vincent held her while Lou turned away and wiped both hands over his face. That evening, Amelia arrived with a child advocacy attorney named Claire Bennett. Claire was in her early 40s, with silver-framed glasses and a voice that remained calm even when Vincent made it clear he disliked the law. She placed Richard's guardianship documents on the office desk. "They appear valid," she said. Vincent looked at Amelia. "Appear? They are valid until a court says otherwise," Claire replied. "The medical evidence helps. Sophie's testimony helps. But we need an official report, a protective order, and a legal placement. She is placed here." Claire looked around the office. "She is hidden inside a restaurant owned by a man the police have investigated for 15 years. Vincent's face hardened. Amelia stepped between them with her voice. "She is safe here. I believe that Claire said. A judge may not." Vincent walked toward the windows. "What happens if Richard files for her return?" "We ask for emergency protection." "And if the judge refuses?" Claire did not answer immediately. Vincent turned. "And if the judge refuses, then the court may order temporary transfer to state care while the allegations are investigated." Sophie's drawing sat on the corner of his desk. Vincent looked at the small orange fox beside the gray dog. "No." Claire removed her glasses. "You cannot threaten a family court." "I can threaten anyone." Amelia's voice cut through the room. "Vincent." He looked at her. "If you turn this into a war against the system, Sophie becomes evidence in a fight between powerful adults. The system left her in that house, and we are going to force it to see what happened. It looked away once. Then help me make it impossible to look away again." Vincent moved toward her. "You trust these people?" "No." "Then why should I?" "Because Sophie needs more than your word." The sentence stopped him. Amelia continued. "She needs documents, protection orders, medical records. A judge who says Richard has no right to touch her again." Vincent looked at Claire. "What do you need?" Claire replaced her glasses. "Everything." Cole delivered the first file before midnight. Richard had accumulated more than $200,000 in gambling debt. He had withdrawn state support payments intended for Sophie and spent them at casinos, bars, and private card rooms. There were 2 previous domestic violence reports. Neither had resulted in conviction. One former girlfriend had left Illinois after Richard threatened her family. Cole placed phone records beside the bank statements. He called 3 men connected to trafficking operations, Cole said. One of them served time for transporting minors. Amelia stood near the desk. "Can you prove what they discussed?" "Not yet." Vincent closed the file. "Then get proof." Cole looked at him. The fast way, or the legal way, Amelia's attention moved to Vincent. He felt it. The useful way, he said. Cole nodded and left. Amelia waited until the door closed. That was almost reassuring. Almost. You still looked disappointed. Vincent poured bourbon into a glass. He did not drink it. "Richard walked into my home and called her his." Amelia stepped closer. "He wanted you to lose control. He nearly succeeded. But he did not." Vincent looked down at the amber liquid. "You think restraint makes me better?" "I think choice does." He set the glass aside. "What happens when choice is not enough?" Amelia's expression softened. "You keep choosing." The city lights moved across her face. Vincent touched her cheek. She did not step away. His thumb rested near the corner of her mouth. "Tell me to stop." Amelia looked at him for a long moment. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed him. The kiss was quiet at first, careful, as if both of them understood how quickly tenderness could become another kind of danger. Vincent placed one hand at her waist. Amelia touched the back of his neck. For several seconds, the office, the river, and Richard Vale disappeared. When they separated, Amelia remained close. "I will not become another person you keep behind guarded doors." Vincent's forehead touched hers. "Then stand beside me. I am trying." A knock sounded. Sophie opened the door before either of them moved apart. She looked from Vincent to Amelia. "Were you fighting?" Amelia cleared her throat. "No." Sophie studied Vincent's hand at Amelia's waist. "You look strange." Vincent lowered his arm. "Thank you." Sophie entered carrying copper. "I had another dream." Amelia held out her hand. Sophie came to her, then reached back for Vincent. He took her other hand. The three of them walked upstairs together. 4 quiet days followed. Richard did not return. Sophie began sleeping in the bed again. She ate breakfast without hiding all of the toast. She laughed when Cole allowed her to place a paper crown on his head. On the 5th morning, Lou asked to take Sophie to the winter market beside the river. Vincent refused before Lou finished asking. Amelia waited until Sophie left the room. She cannot stay inside forever. She can stay inside until Richard is arrested. That could take weeks, then weeks. You are turning this place into a beautiful basement. Vincent stared at her. Amelia did not soften the words. She needs air, noise, other children. She needs to learn the world is not only dangerous. The world is dangerous. Yes, and she survived it. Vincent looked toward the kitchen where Sophie was helping Margaret button her red coat. Cole entered. "I can put 4 men around the park without her seeing them." Vincent's jaw tightened. Amelia waited. Finally, he nodded. Sophie came toward him wearing her red boots cream hat and copper tucked beneath one arm. "Will you be here when I come back?" Vincent crouched. "Exactly here." She studied his face. Then she hugged him quickly and ran back to Lou. Vincent watched them leave through the front doors. Across the street, a black delivery van pulled away from the curb. Inside, Richard watched Sophie through the rear window. He lifted his phone and typed a message. "Take the girl, keep her face clean. Take the girl, keep her face clean." Richard watched the message change from delivered to read. The black van rolled past the black orchid without slowing. Through the rear window, he caught one final glimpse of Sophie walking beside Lou toward the river. Her red coat stood out against the dirty snow. A cream hat covered most of her hair. The stuffed fox was tucked beneath her arm. She looked warm. She looked fed. She looked as though someone had taught her she was allowed to take up space. Richard slipped the phone into his coat. "That place has made her careless," he said. The driver glanced at him through the mirror. "You sure Caruso does not have people on her?" Richard looked toward the restaurant fading behind them. "Of course he does." The driver's hands tightened on the wheel. Richard smiled. "That is why I hired men who know how to create confusion." The winter market stretched along the river beneath strings of white lights. Wooden stalls sold roasted chestnuts, hot cider scarves, candles, and small glass ornaments that turned slowly in the wind. Sophie walked between Lou and the iron railing. The Chicago River moved below them, dark and heavy beneath a skin of broken ice. Lou carried a paper cup of coffee in one hand and a bag of chestnuts in the other. He had complained for 3 blocks about the quality of the market food, then purchased enough of it to feed 6 people. Sophie pointed toward a pigeon standing on a bench. "That one only has 1 foot." Lou looked. "It has 2. The other one is hiding." "Why cold? Do birds get cold?" "Everything gets cold in Chicago." The pigeon lowered its 2nd foot. Sophie smiled. "You were right." Lou opened the bag of chestnuts. "I am always right. People simply need time to understand." She accepted one and held it between her gloves. The shell was warm. For a few minutes she forgot to look behind her. Cole's men moved around them without appearing to move together. One stood beside a coffee stall studying his phone. Another walked a dog near the railing. A third sat inside a dark sedan at the corner. Cole followed half a block behind in a gray coat, close enough to see Sophie's red hat between the crowd. Vincent had wanted 6 men. Cole had convinced him that 4 were enough. Amelia had insisted that Sophie not notice any of them. So far, she had not. Sophie stopped at a table covered with small wooden animals. There were bears, horses, dogs, owls, and foxes carved from pale wood. She picked up a fox with 2 pointed ears. Lou stood beside her. "You like that one?" She looked at Copper beneath her arm. "This one has both ears. Copper has character. What does that mean?" "It means perfect things are boring." Sophie turned the wooden fox over in her hands. A shadow moved across the table. Cole looked toward the street. The black van entered the corner too fast. Its tires sprayed slush against the curb. Cole was already moving when the vehicle jumped onto the edge of the walkway. Lou. Lou heard the tone. He did not look for the danger. He grabbed Sophie by the shoulders and pushed her behind him. The van stopped hard. Its side door opened. 2 men came out. The first wore a dark work jacket and gloves. The second had a knit cap pulled low over his face. Neither looked at Lou. Their eyes went directly to the red coat. Lou stepped into their path. The first man reached inside his jacket. Lou struck him before the hand came out. His fist landed against the man's jaw with a sound like wood breaking. The attacker stumbled into a market table. Glass ornaments fell and shattered across the pavement. The second man drove his shoulder into Lou's stomach. Air left him. He folded forward. A fist struck the side of his face. Sophie screamed. The first attacker recovered and rushed around Lou. He caught Sophie by the arm. Her body went rigid. For a single second, she did not fight. The open van door waited behind him. Dark interior, metal floor, no windows. Her breath disappeared. The man pulled. Sophie saw a basement door, a bare bulb swinging above concrete steps. Richard's hand on the back of her neck. Her voice came out small. "No." The man tightened his grip. "Move." Something inside her broke free. Sophie kicked him in the shin with one red boot and screamed as loudly as she could. Cole reached them before the man could lift her. He caught the attacker by the throat from behind and dragged him backward. Sophie fell into the snow. The second attacker turned away from Lou. One of Cole's men struck him from the side and drove him into the van. Metal bent beneath the impact. Another security man pulled the driver from the front seat. The driver reached for something beneath his coat. A forearm pressed against his throat before his hand found it. Cole forced the first attacker onto his knees. The man struggled. Cole twisted one arm behind his back until he stopped. "Stay down." Lou pushed himself upright. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth. One eye had already begun to swell. "Where is she?" Cole turned. Sophie sat in the snow near the broken display table. Copper was trapped beneath one arm. Her eyes were fixed on the open van. Cole approached slowly. He crouched several feet away. "Sophie." She did not respond. "It is Cole." Her breathing came in sharp, shallow pulls. "They tried to take me. They did not." She stared past him. "They had the door open. I know. They were going to put me inside." Cole removed one glove and placed his open hand on the snow between them. They did not. Sophie looked at his hand. She did not take it. Lou limped toward her. His face twisted with pain when he lowered himself to one knee. "Kiddo." She looked at the blood on his mouth. "I'm sorry." Lou's expression changed. "No." Her lips trembled. "You got hurt because of me. Not one more apology. I should not have come outside." Lou held both hands open. "You came outside because children are allowed to walk through a park." Her eyes filled. I should have seen them. That is not your job." The first sob escaped her. Lou moved only when she reached for him. She threw herself against his chest. He caught her with a quiet groan and wrapped both arms around her. Cole stood. One of his men held up a phone. This came from the man who grabbed her. Cole took it. The screen was still unlocked. A message glowed beneath the contact name, R. Vale. "Take the girl. Keep her face clean." A second message arrived. "She is worth more if she looks untouched." Cole's face emptied. He pressed the call button on his own phone. Vincent answered before the first ring finished. "Report." Cole looked at Sophie crying against Lou's coat. They made their move. Silence. "Where River Market. 2 men and a driver. Sophie safe. Is she hurt?" "No visible injuries. She is frightened." Vincent exhaled once. It was the only sign that he had been holding his breath. "Lou. Took 2 hits. He is standing." "I am fine," Lou shouted from the snow. Cole ignored him. "We have the men. Bring them to the police." Cole looked again at the message. "There is proof." Vincent's voice changed. What kind? Cole read the first message, then the second. The silence on the line became colder than the river. "Copy everything Vincent said. Send it to Claire. Send it to Amelia. Make certain the original device never leaves our sight. What about the men? No private rooms. No conversations without witnesses." Cole understood what Vincent was choosing. "Richard, find him." Cole looked at the attacker kneeling in the snow. "And when we do?" Vincent did not answer immediately. When his voice returned, it was controlled. "Bring him into the light." The line ended. Cole handed the phone to one of his men. "Photograph every screen. Record the time. Do not touch anything else." The first attacker spat blood onto the snow. "You people have no idea what you are involved in." Cole looked down at him. "You tried to put a child in a van. She belongs to Vale." Cole crouched. The attacker flinched. Cole's voice remained quiet. "No child belongs to a man." Police sirens grew louder along the river. Cole stood and turned toward Sophie. She was still holding Lou. Her red coat was streaked with snow. The wooden fox she had been examining lay broken beside the market table. Cole bent and picked up the pieces. One ear had snapped off. He placed both pieces inside his pocket. The ride back to the Black Orchid took 4 minutes. Sophie sat between Lou and Cole in the rear seat. Lou held an ice pack against his face. Sophie kept both hands around Copper and stared at the floor. Cole did not ask questions. He did not tell her to calm down. He simply sat where she could see him. When the car stopped beneath the awning, the restaurant doors were already open. Vincent stood inside. He had no coat. His white shirt sleeves were rolled to his forearms. The top button at his collar was open. He looked as though he had left his office the instant Cole called and had not moved since. Sophie saw him. The car door opened. She ran. Vincent came forward just as she reached the entrance. She struck him at the waist with enough force to make him step back. Her arms closed around him. He bent and lifted her. Sophie clung to his neck. They came back. "I know. You said they would not take me. They did not. They touched me." Vincent closed his eyes. His hand moved slowly over the back of her coat. "I know." They had a van. "You are here." Her face pressed into his shoulder. I screamed. "Good." She lifted her head. Vincent looked at her. "You screamed and people heard you?" Sophie stared at him as though she had never considered that screaming might save her instead of making things worse. Amelia came through the corridor carrying her medical bag. She saw the snow on Sophie's coat and the blood on Lou's face. Her gaze moved to Vincent. "Upstairs." Vincent carried Sophie to the 3rd floor. Amelia followed. Margaret met them outside the suite with clean blankets and a basin of warm water. Lou attempted to turn toward the kitchen. Amelia caught his sleeve. "Where are you going? I have dinner service." "You have a possible cracked rib. I have had worse." No one asked. Lou looked at Vincent. Vincent said, "Sit down." Lou muttered something in Italian and lowered himself into a chair. Inside the suite, Vincent placed Sophie on the edge of the bed. She did not release his shirt. Amelia crouched in front of her. "May I check your arm?" Sophie looked at Vincent. He sat beside her. "I am staying." She loosened one hand. Amelia examined the red marks where the attacker had grabbed her. No bones were broken. There were no injuries beyond bruising a scraped knee and the shock moving through her body in visible waves. Amelia removed Sophie's wet gloves. Her fingers were freezing. "Can you feel this?" Sophie nodded. "This..." Another nod. Amelia wrapped both hands in a warm towel. "You did well." Sophie's eyes dropped. "I froze." "You screamed." "I froze first." Amelia sat beside her. "That happens when the body believes running will not work. I should have fought sooner. You are 7. The words were gentle but firm. You were never supposed to fight those men. The adults around you were supposed to stop them. Sophie looked at Vincent. "Did they?" "Yes," he said. "Are they dead?" The room went quiet. Vincent met her eyes. "No." "Why?" "Because the police need to hear what they did." Sophie considered this. "Richard told them." "Yes. How do you know one of them had messages?" Her fingers tightened around the towel. "What did the messages say?" Vincent looked at Amelia. Amelia gave a slight shake of her head. "Enough to prove he sent them," Vincent said. Sophie searched his face. "Are you going to kill him?" Margaret stopped beside the dresser. Amelia did not move. Vincent answered slowly. "No." Sophie looked surprised. "You want to?" "Yes." The honesty drew Amelia's attention. Vincent continued. "But wanting something does not mean I have to do it." "Why not?" "Because if Richard disappears, people can invent reasons. They can say he ran away. They can say he was innocent. They can say you lied." Sophie lowered her eyes. "If he stands in court, the truth follows him." She looked at Amelia. "Is that true?" "It can," Amelia said. "We have to protect the evidence and tell the truth clearly." Sophie leaned against Vincent. "Will I have to see him?" "Not tonight," Amelia said. "Tomorrow we will tell you before anything happens." Sophie looked up at Vincent. He nodded. The promise had remained the same. Her grip on his shirt loosened slightly. Margaret helped her change into warm clothes. Amelia gave her water and checked her breathing again. Vincent stayed on the bed until exhaustion began pulling Sophie under. When he shifted to stand, her hand closed around his wrist. "Please." He sat again. Amelia dimmed the lamps. Margaret left to arrange another room for Lou. Sophie held Vincent's wrist beneath the blanket. Her eyes closed. Every few minutes, her fingers tightened as though checking that he remained real. Amelia waited near the door. When Sophie's breathing finally deepened, Vincent eased his hand free. He stood beside the bed and watched her sleep. The bruise on her arm had already begun to darken. Amelia stepped into the hall. Vincent followed and pulled the door nearly closed. He walked several feet before stopping. His fist struck the wall. The sound cracked through the corridor. Amelia did not flinch. Blood appeared across his knuckles. Vincent stared at it. "I told her she was safe." "She is." They reached her, and they failed. They put their hands on her. Amelia stepped closer. "Look at me." He did not. She caught his injured hand. "Vincent." His eyes met hers. "You cannot make the world harmless. I can make Richard harmless. You can also destroy the case. He sent men to steal her. And now we can prove it." Vincent looked toward the closed suite door. "She asked if I would kill him." "What did you tell her? No." "Then keep your promise." His jaw tightened. Amelia lifted his hand and wrapped a clean cloth around the cuts. "Do not make Sophie learn that safety only exists when another person dies." Vincent's voice dropped. "You think I do not know what she needs? I think you are angry enough to forget." He stepped closer. The corridor seemed to narrow around them. Amelia held her ground. Vincent looked at her hand around his. "I have spent my life making men regret touching what is mine. Sophie is not yours." His gaze sharpened. "She is my responsibility." "Yes." Amelia tightened the cloth. "And she loves you." The words stopped him. Vincent said nothing. Amelia continued more softly. "She ran to you. She trusted you to tell her the truth. Do not leave her alone with another promise, because anger feels easier." Vincent's expression shifted. The fury remained, but it no longer controlled the room. He turned his hand and closed his fingers around Amelia's. "Come with me, to where my office." Cole was waiting downstairs. The attacker's phone sat inside a clear evidence bag on the desk. Claire Bennett stood beside it with 2 police detectives and an assistant state attorney. Vincent entered with Amelia. One detective looked at their joined hands. Vincent released her. Claire opened a laptop. "The messages are authenticated by the device records. The sender number belongs to Richard." "Location?" Vincent asked. Cole placed a photograph on the desk. "A warehouse near the freight yards. One of Richard's gambling associates owns the lease." The assistant state attorney leaned forward. "We have enough for conspiracy and attempted kidnapping. The trafficking language strengthens the warrant, but we need him alive, and we need the phone in his possession." Vincent looked at Cole. "You know the warehouse?" "Yes." The detective stood. "Our tactical unit is moving now." Vincent's gaze remained on the photograph. Claire saw it. "You are not going. He sent men after a child under my roof. That is precisely why you should remain here. I know the building." The detective shook his head. "You step inside and every defense attorney in Illinois will claim evidence was planted." Cole spoke. "There is a service tunnel beneath the east loading area. Richard will use it if he hears police." The detective looked at him. "How do you know?" Cole's face remained blank. "I know the owner." The assistant state attorney glanced at Vincent. "We need the route." "You have it," Vincent said. "Cole will take you." Cole looked at him. Vincent understood the question in his eyes. "No private justice." Cole nodded. Vincent turned toward Amelia. She studied him carefully. "You are staying?" "Yes." She exhaled. Then Cole's phone rang. He answered. His expression changed. What everyone in the office went still. Cole listened for several seconds. Then he looked at Vincent. "Richard is leaving." Vincent crossed the room. "Where south exit?" "Our man lost sight of him near the freight tracks." The detective reached for his radio. Cole held up one hand. "There is only one place that route goes. The service tunnel," Vincent said. Cole nodded. Vincent looked at the detectives. "You will not reach the far exit before he does." Claire stepped into his path. "Do not." Vincent looked past her toward the stairs. Sophie was asleep 2 floors above them. He picked up his coat. "I am not going to kill him." Claire's voice remained firm. "You cannot control what happens once you see him." Amelia moved closer. Vincent met her eyes. She did not order him to stay. She touched the cloth around his hand. "Come back. I said I would." The freight yards were nearly empty beneath the falling snow. Rows of dark rail cars stretched into the distance. Yellow security lights cast narrow pools across the tracks. Wind carried the smell of oil rust and river water. Vincent and Cole reached the warehouse before the police. They entered through the east tunnel. The concrete passage ran beneath the building, lined with pipes and old electrical boxes. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling. Vincent heard footsteps ahead. Richard appeared near the far exit carrying a leather bag. He stopped when he saw them. For the first time, there was no public smile. "You." Vincent walked forward. Richard glanced behind him. Cole moved into the path. No exit there. Richard looked at Vincent's hands. "You came unarmed." Vincent did not answer. Richard laughed. "That doctor has changed you." Vincent stopped several feet away. "Put down the bag." "Or what?" "Put it down." Richard's fingers tightened around the handle. "You think Sophie belongs with you?" Vincent's face remained still. "She does not know what you are. She knows exactly what I am. She knows the version you show her." Vincent took another step. Richard backed toward the wall. "You cannot raise a child in a criminal empire." "No." Richard blinked. Vincent continued. "That is why the empire changes." Richard's smile returned weakly. "You would destroy everything for her. I built everything because I failed one child." The confession hung in the tunnel. Richard's eyes narrowed. "You think protecting Sophie fixes that no?" Vincent moved closer. "It protects Sophie." Richard pulled a phone from his pocket. Cole raised his weapon. "Drop it." Richard held the phone against his chest. "There are names in here worth more than that girl." Vincent's expression darkened. "Do not call her that. I can give you politicians, judges, men who would love to see Caruso fall." Vincent looked at the phone. "You are bargaining with the wrong life." Richard's face twisted. "She is damaged. She wakes screaming. She hides food. She lies. She will poison your house until everyone in it is exhausted." Vincent struck him once. The blow sent Richard into the wall. The leather bag fell. Cole did not move. Richard touched the blood at his mouth and smiled. "There he is." Vincent's hand closed. Richard wanted another blow. He wanted rage. He wanted bruises he could display to a jury. Vincent saw the calculation. He opened his fist. Richard's smile faded. "You locked her in the dark," Vincent said. Richard pushed away from the wall. "She needed discipline. You burned her. She hurt herself. You sent men to take her." Richard looked toward Cole. "You cannot prove what I meant." Police sirens sounded beyond the warehouse. Richard's eyes changed. Vincent stepped aside. Cole opened the tunnel gate. Red and blue light flashed across the snow outside. Richard looked from the exit to Vincent. "You called them." Vincent's voice was calm. "Sophie deserves to watch you lose where everyone can see it." Richard lunged for the phone on the ground. Cole reached him first. He drove Richard face down against the concrete and pulled both arms behind his back. The detectives entered seconds later. Richard shouted as they placed him in restraints. "This man threatened me." Vincent looked at the blood on Richard's lip. He fell against the wall. Cole's mouth almost moved. The detective took Richard's phone and sealed it inside an evidence bag. Richard twisted toward Vincent. "You think this ends because I sit in a cell?" Vincent met his eyes. "It ends because she no longer believes you are coming through the door." Police led Richard into the snow. Vincent watched until the car disappeared between the rail cars. Cole stood beside him. "You could have done it." "Yes. Why didn't you?" Vincent looked toward the city. "Because she asked me not to become what she fears." Back at the Black Orchid. Amelia entered the wine cellar after hearing a noise near the service corridor. One of the security monitors had gone dark. Margaret stood behind the bar with a phone in her hand. "The west camera is out. Where is Sophie?" "Upstairs." A metal door closed somewhere below them. Amelia looked toward the cellar stairs. "Lock the third floor." Margaret pressed the security control beneath the counter. A man stepped from the shadows near the storage racks. He wore a dark coat and held a knife low beside his leg. Amelia recognized him from Cole's file, one of Richard's gambling associates. He looked at her. "Where is the girl?" Margaret moved toward the alarm. The man raised the knife. "Do not!" Amelia stepped between him and the staircase. "She is not here. You are the doctor." Amelia said nothing. He smiled. "Vale said Caruso listens to you." Margaret's hand reached the edge of the counter. The man saw it. He rushed forward. Amelia grabbed a bottle from the rack and struck his wrist. The knife fell. Margaret hit the alarm. The man caught Amelia by the hair and threw her against the shelves. Glass shattered. Pain tore across her shoulder. Upstairs, Sophie heard the alarm. She opened her bedroom door. A guard stood at the far end of the corridor. "Stay inside," he said. Sophie looked toward the stairs. "Where is Amelia?" The guard did not answer. Sophie's face changed. She ran. The guard caught up before she reached the second floor. Margaret appeared below them. "Sophie, come with me. Where is Amelia?" Margaret took Sophie's hand. "Safe room." Sophie pulled away. "Where is she?" A crash sounded from the cellar. Sophie froze. Margaret crouched. "Look at me." Sophie's eyes remained on the stairs. "Amelia told me to keep you safe. She is down there." "Yes." "Is Richard here?" "No." Margaret took both of Sophie's hands. "You are not in the basement. You are at the Black Orchid. The lights are on. The door opens from the inside." Sophie looked at her. Margaret repeated the words. "The door opens from the inside." Sophie's breathing slowed enough to move. Margaret guided her into the concealed office behind the wine room. She placed Sophie inside and showed her the handle. "You can open it yourself. Are you staying?" "Yes." The security team reached the cellar. The intruder dragged Amelia toward the rear door. Blood ran down her sleeve where glass had cut her shoulder. He held the knife against her side. "Back away." The guard stopped. Amelia looked past him. A heavy bottle lay near her foot. She kicked it into the man's ankle. His balance broke. The guards moved. One struck his wrist. Another forced him to the floor. Amelia staggered against the wall. Margaret heard the radio call. Clear. She opened the concealed room. Sophie ran past her. Amelia had reached the bottom of the stairs. Sophie saw the blood. Her face crumpled. "You got hurt." Amelia crouched despite the pain. "It looks worse than it is." Sophie touched the edge of her sleeve. "Because of me?" "No." The word came sharply. Amelia softened her voice. "Because a dangerous man made a choice. Not because of you." Sophie began to cry. Amelia pulled her close with one arm. The front doors opened upstairs. Vincent entered with Cole. He saw the broken glass. Then he saw Amelia. Blood stained her sweater. Sophie was wrapped around her waist. Vincent crossed the room. "What happened?" Amelia looked at him. Richard had another man. Vincent touched her face. "Where are you hurt?" "My shoulder." He looked at the blood. "Amelia, I am all right." His hand trembled once against her cheek. Sophie saw it. "They arrested Richard?" she asked. Vincent lowered himself beside her. "Yes. Can he come back now?" She looked into his eyes. This time she did not search for the hidden condition. She believed him. Amelia touched Vincent's wrist. His gaze returned to her. "You came back," she said. "I said I would." Vincent looked at the blood on her sleeve, then at Sophie's hand holding hers. The words left him before he could prepare them. "I love you." The cellar became very quiet. Amelia stared at him. Vincent did not look away. "I love you," he said again. Amelia's eyes filled. Then build something with me that does not depend on fear. Vincent looked at Sophie. Her red boots stood among the broken glass, both feet planted firmly on the floor. He placed one hand over Amelia's and the other around Sophie's shoulders. I will. Outside, police lights moved across the river windows. Inside, the three of them remained together while Richard Vale was carried through the Chicago night in the back of a locked car. The police lights remained outside the Black Orchid until sunrise. Blue and red reflections moved across the dining room windows, sliding over empty tables and overturned chairs. Officers photographed the broken glass in the cellar. Detectives carried sealed evidence bags through the front entrance. Somewhere in the kitchen, a coffee machine hissed into the silence. Vincent sat beside Amelia in the third-floor suite while a doctor stitched the cut across her shoulder. Sophie refused to leave the room. She sat at the foot of the bed with copper in her lap and watched every movement of the needle. Her red boots were still wet from the melted snow. A small piece of glass glittered against one sole. Margaret knelt and removed it without comment. The doctor tied the final stitch. You were lucky. Amelia glanced at Vincent. He does not believe in luck. Vincent's expression did not change. I believe in better security. Amelia winced as the doctor covered the wound. I knew you would find a way to make this about locked doors. Vincent leaned forward. A man entered my building and put a knife against you, and now he is in custody. He entered my building. Amelia looked at him. Vincent stopped. Sophie's eyes were moving between them. He lowered his voice. You were hurt. I know. I should have been here. You cannot be everywhere. I can try. Amelia reached for his hand. The cloth around his knuckles had darkened with blood. You came back, she said. Vincent looked down at their joined hands. It was not enough for him. Amelia could see that. He was already rebuilding the night inside his mind, searching for the exact decision that would have prevented every injury. Sophie climbed from the foot of the bed. She moved between them and placed one hand over Vincent's. You said Richard cannot come back. He cannot. And the other man, he cannot come back either. Are there more? Vincent did not lie. There may be people who knew Richard. Sophie's shoulders tightened. Amelia reached for her. But the police have his phone, she said. They have the messages. They know what he tried to do. Sophie looked at Vincent. Does that mean they believe me now? The question struck more deeply than her fear. Vincent rose from the chair and lowered himself in front of her. They should have believed you before. But do they now? Yes. Sophie studied his face. Then she nodded and leaned against him. Vincent lifted her carefully. She rested her head on his shoulder while Amelia watched them. For the first time since the van appeared at the river, Sophie closed her eyes. 3 days later, Richard Vale appeared before a judge. The hearing took place in a gray courtroom beneath fluorescent lights. Richard wore a dark suit supplied by his attorney. The swelling on his lip had faded, and his hair was combed neatly away from his face. He looked respectable again. That had always been one of his talents. Vincent sat in the rear of the courtroom beside Amelia and Claire Bennett. Cole remained near the door. 2 detectives occupied the row ahead of them. Sophie was not present. Amelia had insisted that the first hearing did not require her. Vincent agreed, though every instinct in him had resisted leaving her behind. Richard's attorney called the kidnapping allegation a misunderstanding. He claimed the men at the river had been hired to recover a runaway child from dangerous strangers. He described Vincent as a criminal who had manipulated Sophie and concealed her from her lawful guardian. The prosecutor placed Richard's phone records before the judge. Then came the messages. Take the girl. Keep her face clean. She is worth more if she looks untouched. The courtroom changed. Richard's attorney stopped writing. The judge looked over the rim of her glasses. Richard stared straight ahead. Additional charges were read: conspiracy to kidnap a minor, attempted trafficking, child abuse, unlawful imprisonment, fraud involving state support payments, witness intimidation. The prosecutor requested that Richard be held without bail. Richard turned toward the rear of the courtroom. His eyes found Vincent. For 1 second, the polished mask disappeared. The hatred beneath it was naked. Vincent did not move. Richard wanted fear. He wanted anger. He wanted proof that he still had the power to change the temperature of a room. Vincent gave him nothing. The judge denied bail. As deputies led Richard away, he twisted once in their grip. "This is not over." His voice echoed through the courtroom. Sophie was not there to hear it. Vincent was grateful for that. Outside, snow had begun to fall over the courthouse steps. Claire closed her folder. "This is only the criminal case." Vincent looked at her. "What remains the guardianship?" Amelia pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders. Claire continued. "Richard's rights will almost certainly be suspended. Diane's position is more complicated." "She left Sophie with him," Vincent said. "Yes. She treated the burns and sent her back into the same room." "I know. Then there is nothing complicated." Claire met his gaze. "The court will decide that." Vincent looked toward the line of government buildings across the street. "And where does Sophie stay while they decide?" "That depends on the emergency placement hearing. She stays with me." Claire did not answer. The silence was enough. Vincent turned fully toward her. "She stays with me." Amelia touched his arm. "Listen." Claire chose her words carefully. "The state sees a child rescued from an abusive guardian and placed inside a building owned by a man with a long history of criminal investigations. No convictions. That will matter to your attorney. It may not matter to a family court judge." Vincent's face hardened. "The safest place she has ever known is being questioned because of my name." "Yes." The honesty stopped him. Claire stepped closer. "If you want to keep her, anger will not help. Threats will not help. Influence will hurt more than it helps. What will help? Transparency." Vincent almost laughed. Amelia looked at him. "No hidden rooms," Claire continued. "No unexplained armed men. No illegal business operating from the same building. Financial disclosures, background reviews, home inspections, interviews with staff." Cole stood behind them without expression. Claire glanced toward him. "Everyone." Vincent looked at Amelia. She did not rescue him from the decision. She waited. "All right," he said. Claire blinked. "That easily?" "No." Vincent looked back at the courthouse doors where Richard had disappeared. "Nothing about this is easy." When they returned to the Black Orchid, Sophie was sitting in the kitchen with Lou. A tray of cupcakes covered the counter. Half were burned. The other half leaned sideways beneath too much frosting. Lou had a bruise around one eye and a bandage beneath his shirt. He had ignored 3 separate orders to rest. Sophie looked up when Vincent entered. Her gaze went first to his face, then to Amelia. "Did they let him go?" "No," Vincent said. "Is he in jail?" "Yes." "For how long?" "We do not know yet." She considered this. "Did the judge read the messages?" "Yes." "Did she believe them?" "Yes." Sophie looked down at the cupcake in front of her. Her finger moved through a line of blue frosting. "What happens to me?" Lou turned away from the oven. Vincent crossed the kitchen. He crouched beside her stool. "There will be another hearing." Her face became still. "Am I leaving?" "No." "You cannot know." The words had become part of her defense. Vincent accepted them. "The court has questions about this home, because it is a restaurant, because of me." Sophie looked confused. "You did not hurt me." "No." "You gave me food." "Yes." "You stayed outside my door." Vincent said nothing. Why would they ask questions about you? Amelia came closer. Courts ask questions before they decide where a child should live. Sophie's hand tightened around the cupcake wrapper. They asked questions before. Amelia sat on the stool beside her, and the adults gave them bad answers. What if they do that again? Then we give them better ones. Sophie looked from Amelia to Vincent. Can they send me somewhere else? Claire had told them not to promise what they could not control. Vincent felt the weight of that instruction now. They could ask you to stay with another family for a short time. The cupcake slipped from Sophie's hand. It landed upside down on the floor. She stared at it. No one moved. I knew it. Sophie. I knew the room was not mine. She climbed down from the stool. Vincent reached toward her and stopped before touching. Sophie, look at me. She ran from the kitchen. The private stair door slammed behind her. Vincent rose. Amelia caught his arm. Give her a moment. She thinks we are abandoning her. I know. That is not something she should sit with alone. Amelia released him. Then do not go in there sounding like a man who plans to fight the entire state. Vincent looked toward the stairs. What should I sound like? Someone who is afraid too. He found Sophie in the third-floor suite. She had pulled an old paper grocery bag from beneath the bathroom sink. Her clothes were folded inside it. The red boots sat beside the bag. Copper lay on top. Vincent stopped in the doorway. What are you doing? Sophie did not look up. Packing. You are not leaving tonight. It is easier if I'm ready. For what? When they come. Vincent entered slowly. No one is coming tonight. They always come when nobody tells me. I will tell you. You said I could stay. Her voice cracked. Vincent lowered himself to the floor. I meant it. But the court can say no. Yes. Sophie looked at him then. Tears stood in her eyes. So your promise was not real. Vincent absorbed the words without defending himself. It was real. You cannot keep it. I am going to fight to keep it. Richard said people fight for things until they get tired. Vincent's jaw tightened. I do not get tired. Everyone gets tired. She pressed both hands against the grocery bag. Vincent moved closer by a few inches. You are right. Sophie blinked. Everyone gets tired. Everyone gets scared. Everyone makes mistakes. She stared at him. But leaving you is not one of the choices I am willing to make. What if they make you? Then I change what they are afraid of. Sophie looked around the suite. What does that mean? It means I answer every question. I open every door. I remove anything from this home that makes it unsafe for you. The guards. Some of them. Cole. Gnome. Her mouth moved slightly. Lou. No one is removing Lou. He would refuse. A weak breath escaped her that almost became a laugh. Vincent continued. The court wants proof that this is a home, isn't it? Yes. Then why do they need proof? Because people cannot always see what happens behind closed doors. Sophie looked down at Copper. Vincent's voice softened. That is how Richard hid what he did. She understood. The anger left her face, but the fear remained. Where will I go if they say no? A voice came from the doorway. With me. Amelia stood there with Claire. Sophie looked up. Amelia entered and sat on the floor across from Vincent. I filed to become your temporary foster guardian. Sophie's brow tightened. What is that? It means the court may let you live with me while everyone decides the permanent plan. But you live here too. I can. Sophie looked between them. Would Vincent be here? Yes, Amelia said. The court would set rules. People would visit. They would check the rooms. They would ask us questions. Would they ask me only with someone trained to make sure you feel safe? Sophie touched the torn ear of her fox. Would I still sleep here? That is what we are asking for. She looked at Vincent. You would let people check your rooms. All of them. Even your office. Yes. The locked drawer. Vincent paused. Amelia looked at him. Sophie waited. Yes, he said. Her eyes narrowed with faint suspicion. What is in it? Documents. And a gun, Amelia said. Vincent looked at her. Sophie looked at him. The gun leaves today, he said. For the first time since she began packing, Sophie released the grocery bag. The inspection took place 1 week later. 2 social workers arrived at the Black Orchid at 9 in the morning. Vincent had closed the restaurant until noon. They examined the suite, the kitchen, the offices, the stairwells, and every entrance. They asked why armed guards stood near the building. Vincent answered. They asked whether illegal operations were conducted from the restaurant. Vincent answered that question too. Cole watched from the hallway as files, computers, and locked cabinets were opened. Years of carefully protected information were moved into the light. Some operations ended that morning. Others had already begun disappearing. Vincent sold his interest in 2 freight companies used to move weapons. He closed the private card rooms that had funded part of his organization. He transferred control of several properties to legitimate management firms. Men who had worked for him for years came to his office demanding explanations. One of them, a broad man named Dominic, stood across from Vincent's desk with anger burning in his face. You are destroying what we built. Vincent looked at the unsigned contracts before him. I built it. We bled for it. So did other people. This is because of the girl. Vincent raised his eyes. Her name is Sophie. Dominic laughed without humor. You think a judge is going to make you respectable? No. Then what are you doing? Vincent looked through the open office door. Sophie sat in the library with Amelia sounding out words from a school book. I am making this building safe enough that she never has to wonder what happens beneath it. Dominic shook his head. You have become weak. Cole moved near the doorway. Vincent lifted one hand. Cole stopped. Vincent rose. Walk out while you are still allowed to mistake restraint for weakness. Dominic stared at him. Then he left. Cole entered after the door closed. You expected that. Yes. There will be others. Yes. Do you want me to handle them? Vincent looked at the childhood drawing still framed on the shelf. The gray dog and the orange fox stood beneath a yellow sun. No threats. Cole's brow lifted. None. Anyone who wants to leave may leave. And anyone who wants to cause trouble. Vincent looked at him. Use your judgment. Cole almost smiled. The changes reached every floor of the Black Orchid. Private meetings moved elsewhere. Weapons disappeared from offices. Security remained, but the men wore ordinary suits and received new training. They learned how to respond to frightened children, medical emergencies, and family court visits. Lou called the training ridiculous until Sophie asked him to participate. He sat through every session. Amelia kept her apartment across the city, but spent most nights in the third-floor guest room. Her relationship with Vincent changed in quiet increments. He learned to knock before entering her room. She learned that his silence did not always mean anger. He brought her coffee during early morning paperwork. She removed the bourbon from his office and replaced it with tea he claimed to hate, but continued drinking. Some nights they sat on the roof after Sophie fell asleep. Chicago spread around them in white lights and dark glass. Vincent told Amelia about Daniel, not only the kidnapping. He told her about the boy who cheated at cards, hated peas, and believed every stray dog needed to be rescued. Amelia told Vincent about the patients she had been unable to save. The names she still remembered. The families she avoided calling because there were no words large enough for what had happened. They did not fix each other. They learned where the wounds were. Sophie's healing arrived in moments so small that another person might have missed them. One morning, she left half a piece of toast on her plate and walked away without hiding it. Lou saw. He carried the plate to the sink with both hands because they had begun to shake. A week later, Sophie woke from a nightmare and called for Vincent instead of hiding beneath the bed. He came. Amelia came too. Sophie allowed them to turn off one lamp before she fell asleep again. She began attending a small school near the lake. On the first morning, she stood outside the classroom, gripping Vincent's hand. Children's voices came through the door. Chairs scraped against the floor. A teacher laughed. Sophie looked up. "Will you be here when I come out?" Vincent crouched. "Yes. What if you have work?" "This is my work." She considered that. Then she entered. Vincent remained in the hallway for 6 hours. Amelia found him there after her hospital shift. "You know parents are allowed to leave." "I know. Are you going to know?" She sat beside him. When Sophie came out, she was carrying a drawing of 3 people standing beside a black building. The smallest figure wore red boots. The woman had brown hair. The man was much taller than everyone else. Sophie handed it to Vincent. "Our teacher said to draw home." He looked at the page for a long time. "Why is Lou on the roof?" "That is not Lou." "It is a chimney." Amelia covered a smile. Vincent nodded solemnly. "Of course." The temporary placement hearing came in early spring. Sophie sat in a private room with a child advocate while Vincent and Amelia waited in court. The judge reviewed the medical records, the criminal charges, the home inspections, and Amelia's foster application. She asked Vincent about his businesses. He answered every question. She asked whether he had ever ordered violence. Claire had prepared him for this. Vincent looked at the judge. "I have lived a violent life." The courtroom became still. His attorney shifted beside him. The judge leaned forward. "That was not the question." "No," Vincent said. "But it is the honest answer." Amelia watched him. Vincent continued. "I have made decisions I would not want a child to repeat. I cannot change where I came from. I can change what exists around her now." The judge studied him. "Why should this court believe that change will last?" Vincent looked toward the closed door behind which Sophie waited. "Because she does not owe me trust. I have to earn it every day." The judge approved Amelia as Sophie's temporary guardian. Sophie would remain at the Black Orchid under scheduled supervision. Vincent was permitted to reside in the same home. It was not adoption. It was not forever. But when Claire told Sophie she could return to her room that night, Sophie wrapped both arms around Amelia and then ran to Vincent. He lifted her. She whispered into his collar. "They said yes, for now." Sophie leaned back. "That is not forever." "No." Her face fell slightly. Vincent touched one finger to the brass button on her coat. "But it is tomorrow." She thought about that. Then she smiled. "Tomorrow is good." Richard's trial began 4 months later. Diane Walker testified on the second day. She entered the courtroom wearing a plain blue dress and no jewelry. Her face looked thinner than the photographs in Cole's file. She admitted seeing the bruises. She admitted treating Sophie's burns. She admitted hearing her cry from the basement. The prosecutor asked why she had done nothing. Diane looked toward the jury. "I was afraid of him." The prosecutor waited. Diane's voice broke, and I chose my fear over her. There was no redemption in the sentence, only truth. She pleaded guilty to child endangerment and accepted a prison sentence in exchange for her testimony. Richard was convicted on every major charge. The judge sentenced him to spend decades in prison. Sophie did not attend. She was in Lou's kitchen learning how to decorate a cake. When Vincent returned, she looked up from the frosting. "Is it finished?" "Yes." "Can he come back?" "No. Ever." Vincent looked at her. "No." Sophie nodded. Then she returned to the cake. That night she slept with her bedroom door closed for the first time. Summer came to Chicago. The river turned green beneath the afternoon light. Tables appeared on the restaurant terrace. Sophie's red boots moved from beside the bed to the top shelf of her closet, though she refused to let Margaret give them away. "They still belong to me," she said. "They always will," Margaret answered. The final guardianship hearing was scheduled near Sophie's 8th birthday. By then, Amelia and Vincent had completed every review the court required. Amelia had moved permanently into the Black Orchid. Vincent's remaining businesses had passed independent audits. The restaurant no longer hid anything beneath its polished floors. One night, before the hearing, Amelia found Vincent in the kitchen. He stood alone beside a badly decorated cake. Blue frosting covered one sleeve of his shirt. Amelia stopped in the doorway. "What happened?" "Lou left me instructions." "You ignored them." "They were unclear. They were written in large letters." Vincent looked down at the cake. The top leaned to one side. A sugar fox had collapsed into the frosting. "It is not finished." Amelia walked closer. "Sophie will love it. She has seen good cakes. She has also seen you threaten an electric mixer." Vincent reached into his pocket. He placed a small ring box beside the bowl of frosting. Amelia stared at it. Vincent opened the box. The diamond inside was simple and clear. "I cannot promise an easy life." Amelia looked at him. "I would not believe you if you did. I can promise that you will not face the difficult parts alone." Her eyes filled. Vincent's voice lowered. "I can promise to ask when I want to command. I can promise to listen when fear makes me certain I am right. That one may require practice." "Yes." Amelia touched the ring. "And Sophie." She approved it. Amelia laughed through her tears. "You asked her first. She has strong opinions. What did she say?" "That the stone should be bigger." Amelia laughed again. Vincent took her hand. "Marry me." "Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. From behind the pantry door came a small sound. Vincent looked toward it. "Sophie." The door opened. Sophie stood there in her pajamas holding copper. "You said I could watch." Amelia looked at Vincent. "You involved her." She was part of the planning. Sophie ran forward and threw her arms around them both. The final hearing took place 2 weeks later. The judge asked Sophie where she wanted to live. Sophie sat beside her advocate with copper in her lap. She looked across the courtroom at Vincent and Amelia. "With them." Why, Sophie thought carefully. "Because they do what they say." The judge glanced at Vincent. "And what do they say?" Sophie held copper closer. "That I can eat when I am hungry. That doors open from the inside. That I do not have to apologize for being in a room." Amelia lowered her eyes. Vincent remained perfectly still. Sophie continued. "They say they will be there when I wake up." The judge approved the permanent guardianship. Outside the courthouse, Sophie took one of Vincent's hands and one of Amelia's. "Does this mean forever?" Amelia crouched in front of her. "It means this is your home. Forever. Forever is something we choose every day." Sophie looked at Vincent. "Will you choose it tomorrow?" "Yes." "The day after, yes." "What about when I am old?" Vincent considered her. "How old? 20?" Amelia smiled. Vincent lifted Sophie into his arms. Even then, the Black Orchid closed for her birthday. Paper stars hung from the chandeliers. Balloons filled the dining room. Cole wore a silver party hat without complaint. Lou presented a fox-shaped cake, much better than the one Vincent had attempted. Margaret gave Sophie a set of books with her full name printed inside each cover. Amelia fastened a silver bracelet around her wrist. One word was engraved across it: Beloved. Vincent waited until the other gifts had been opened. Then he handed Sophie a small box. Inside was a brass key. "What does it open?" she asked. "Every family door in this building." "All of them?" "All of them." "Your office?" "Yes." "The kitchen?" "Lou may object." Lou raised one hand. "I object." Sophie smiled. She closed her fingers around the key. Later, snow began falling outside the tall windows. It was the first snow of the new winter. Sophie stood beside Vincent, overlooking the river. Behind them, Amelia laughed with Margaret. Lou argued with Cole about the proper way to cut the cake. Sophie touched the key hanging from her bracelet. "Do you remember what I asked you outside?" Vincent looked down. "Every word. I asked if you knew anyone who needed a daughter." "You did you?" Vincent looked across the dining room. At Amelia, at Cole wearing the party hat, at Lou pretending not to save the largest piece of cake for Sophie. Then he lowered himself until he and Sophie were eye to eye. "No," he said. Her smile faded. "I did not know anyone who needed a daughter." Sophie looked down at the key. Vincent touched her shoulder. "I was the one who needed one." She looked up. "I just did not know it until you asked." Sophie threw her arms around his neck. Vincent held her as snow covered the Chicago streets beyond the glass. When she stepped back, both of her red boots rested flat against the marble floor. She was no longer walking on the edges of her feet. She was no longer trying to leave as little of herself behind as possible. Sophie turned toward the people waiting for her beneath the chandeliers. Then she ran back into the warmth, laughing loudly enough for the entire room to hear. No one told her to be quiet.